What's going on, gamers? We had an interesting survey here by Game Developers Conference, which I think the survey is a little bit inflated and a little bit off on certain things. We will get to that in a second, and why I think certain things that are high could be good when it comes to optimizing. And you guys will see what I'm talking about. First and foremost, we're going to get to the article on Video Game Chronicles, but what I want to highlight over here on Stealth, where he says, in the latest GDC State of the Game Industry survey, 2,300 game developers, but it's only 2,300, it's a lot more than that, but this still kind of says something. We're asked what platforms interest them the most. PC has an 80% rate. I think it's a bit inflated. I'd probably say realistically, it's probably about 60%. And I think PlayStation is a bit higher with Switch 2, but the fact that Switch 2 is up there, remember, this is third party, says a lot. Steam Deck is inflated, but the reason why I don't mind seeing the Steam Deck, for one reason, because we're not a hater over here, because we got to think about specifications. It's like, how many people actually have that? But they kind of count that in for PC. I don't understand how that's separate, because it's access to PC. Is that you're willing to optimize for that denominator, that denominator that's that low, those specifications, because it's definitely weaker than the Switch 2. You know what I mean? Because it's like, and you think about the install base, the Switch 2 already like quadrupled your install base already, you know? So it's like, and it's going to get to 100 plus million over time. But PC being there, I think that has a lot to do with shovelware on Steam and, you know, other things else. And on top of, there's not an online fee, and I think they get a lot more cut probably. But even then, that's not a bad thing because you do everything on there first anyways. But we do see the shift and the highlight of wanting to develop for PC. The interesting thing is how close the Switch 2 is to PlayStation 5 now. But seeing the Xbox, it's like, whoa, 20%. Everywhere you go, it's the interest is down because nobody buys games anyways. They're not that interested, and you're trying to force somebody to do the play anywhere stuff, or nope, your market is just not there. You know what I mean? Developers don't want anything to do with that, and I think they want to avoid the Series S too. And I think they do kind of think like that, though. We've had videos where I say that there's something wrong with that again because the Steam Deck is weaker than that. But I still think there's some weird hidden thing where it's somehow developers do think like that. Like they don't want anything to do with Microsoft because why would I want to do all those settings when I'm not getting that much of a benefit? And there's just nothing going on. So that 20% is bad. And honestly, that's from 2,300 developers. I wonder what the worldwide one would be. Oh, boy. But what I do know is that seeing Switch 2 get close to PlayStation is pretty crazy. So we're going to have to read some comments here, and then we're going to go to the main article as well. Or we can go to the main article and come back to the comments. Either way, like I said, the reason why I don't mind the Steam Deck being here like this, though I think this is inflated and probably not real compared to the Switch 2. I mean, it's like, doesn't make any sense, is that you're willing to optimize. And if you can optimize there, you can optimize better everywhere. That's a good way of looking at it. But yeah, I mean, Xbox is just not looking too well. Let's go over to the article here. And let's see the full numbers. It says twice as many developers surveyed by GDC. Just to let you know, that is more than usual. Say they want to make games on PS5 or Switch 2 than on Xbox. PC remains the most popular system among developers by far. The number of developers interested in working on Xbox games is half that of PlayStation 5 and Switch. That's according to the latest annual State of the Games Industry Survey, which is managed by the Game Developers Conference. You see this right here, guys? Here it is. Okay, so this is where things get interesting. It says the survey, which questions more than 2,300 games industry professionals around the world, asked its respondents to list which platforms interest them most a developer at the moment. Respondents were allowed to choose as many options as possible. Yeah, they couldn't. It's not just one, guys. They were able to just highlight whatever. That's why you see stuff like that. It's not about, oh, this took 80%, so it has to be 20% under split between that. It's not like that, obviously. Which is why you're probably wondering, well, why does it look like that? That's probably why, if you didn't know that, but I'm pretty sure you guys are smart enough. 80% of respondents said they were interested in developing a game on PC. By far the most popular choice. However, whereas 40% said they were interested in making PS5 games, and around the same 39% said that they wanted to on the Switch 2, only 20% chose Xbox, though. That's not good. This makes it closer in terms of developer popularity to Android 16%, iOS 16%, and the original Switch 13%. The results suggest a change in attitude towards Microsoft's console. I mean, this is what they're doing, guys. We're seeing this everywhere, right? It's the same thing like when you think about the attitude towards Windows 11 lately. And it's pretty much kind of in the same ballpark. Given that 40% of respondents said that their last project was released on Xbox versus 47% on PlayStation. And now the new change is drop down Xbox 20%, PlayStation only 7%, and boost up Switch 2 big time, But, you're going to be able to, like, get that advantage now because there's more open markets now for third-party support. And in Japan, which is still a very healthy market, as you guys seen those numbers. It's just for Nintendo. But guess what? You still have that market to tap into for your third-party games. They probably won't be accessible elsewhere there because other consoles are not selling like that. So that's where you have to go. And they don't care about, ridiculous specs like that. Now it says, which platforms most interest you as a developer right now? So here it is, guys. All the way down to Linux, tabletop games, Mac, VR, web browser, Xbox One, ROG Ally. You see, and nobody cares about that. I try to tell you. What's so funny? The Steam Deck is destroying that in choices. They looked at that thing like, no. Because once again, I think like I say, it goes back to Microsoft. Goes back to when you see what I'm saying, guys? Like, they don't want anything to do with that. The reason why PC is so high is because of Steam. And I think everybody knows this, right? This is not a guesstimate, right? It's like, no. You're right. It's because of Steam. Yeah, it is. So Xbox Cloud Gaming, 5%, not interested. So when you really think about where Microsoft is at, the best they got is the Series X and S at the moment. And we know the state of that at the moment. Everything else, they're telling you, we don't care about cloud gaming. We don't care about the ROG Ally. We don't. We're not even thinking much about that. They will be more interested. Here's the thing with the Ally. They'll be more interested in Linux, Mac, VR, AR, and MR, and tabletop and the original Switch over that. And then you're like, well, what about the specifications? Once again, it's like I'm telling you, there's better options elsewhere. People don't care. And once again, this is an extension of PC. But I think by aligning this separately, it gives people the idea of what they're interested in when it comes to looking at what you want to develop for, like by a device or platform. You get what I'm saying? Obviously, like I said, we really know what's going to be going on here. Steam Deck to me is a part of PC, so I would just say PC, PlayStation 5, and Switch 2 are basically the highlights here. And the interesting thing about Nintendo is that, I want you guys to think about this. The thing about Nintendo is that they're mostly first party, right? This is how big the Switch 2 has grown in third-party interests after what everybody saw last year and what's coming around the corner. Because if they're willing to do that for 40% Steam Deck, and you know how much more powerful the Switch 2 is than the Steam Deck, plus it can be docked, then this gives you the ideas of why they would have that type of interest. And I think it could only grow over time if they get something like DLSS this year and stuff like that from NVIDIA, which I think is very plausible and has to happen because the ARC developers already said that's what they're going to be doing. If it's going to be put on Switch, that's what they want to do. So, yeah, guys, I mean, this is definitely interesting. Going down here, it says GDC also asked respondents about their desire to work on handheld PCs, and Steam Deck led the pace, right? And the ROG Ally is like 7%. They don't want nothing to do with it. They like that. This tells you something about the OS, too, and the brand of Microsoft Gaming. Linux. In a separate question, when asked what the top factors were for their company when choosing which platforms to release their game on, the most popular answers were audience reach 78%, business model success 44%, and discoverability. So you see right here, audience reach 78%, business model 44%, and discoverability 43%. So audience reach is the most important factor here. That doesn't surprise me. Xbox has continued to push towards becoming a multi-platform business, repositioning its consoles as just one of the many ways to play its first-party games because it didn't have a choice, but it's not working out for them. Most of the big games for 2026 are already confirmed for PlayStation 5. As we know, Fable and Forza, that's coming along with Halo and everything else. So this survey gives you that idea. Now, going over here to Twitter, we're going to get some answers there. We got Orlando saying strange Steam Deck numbers when barely any new game runs on the deck. This is why I said that when I think the PC numbers inflated along with that, it goes back to indie and bloated shovelware. That's why that's like that. I think if we really took a look at the real number, PC would probably be like 60 something plus percent. Steam Deck probably like 50, 20%, not that much higher. Like we're talking about it in a different perspective, right? Depending on the game developer's mind, there's probably a lot of indie developers there. I'm just saying, it would be different. And Switch and PlayStation obviously are going to be close, but Xbox, I don't think that's going to change much. Ashley says, I'm genuinely sick of the PC push. Well, here's the thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but if PC becomes so unaffordable like it is now, yeah, that's not good. And like I said, I think a lot of that has a lot to do with shovelware, because like, what exclusives are you making for PC? Yeah, it's just going to be that. You see what I mean? So that's the thing, because it's like, when you're talking about PlayStation and Nintendo, that's different, because it's like, oh, they have their own first party already. So it's going to be something different. It's not really a big thing to do console locked exclusives anymore like that compared to back then. Most stuff is already available. So I can understand that. This guy says PC handheld should never be accounted for in regards to dev interests. The Steam Deck is a mobile PC from 2013-2020 spec-wise. No dev can spec for a stupid PC handheld, but can for a hybrid like Switch 2. I know that Steam Deck can be docked, but its dock doesn't push higher power. I know what he means. That's why I said, if you're really thinking about that and you want to be intelligent about it, guys, it has to be indie games. So that's probably why you can't take this as 100% face value for everything. I think we're scaling down some indies and lower games to that extent, because Steam does have a lot of that on there, a ton. So does Nintendo in a lot of ways, This guy says, if someone can point me to a single game that was developed for Steam Deck, I will take this poll seriously. Either the question was different or the people that answered didn't understand it. That's what I was trying to say. Like, that's the only way for that to make sense. Steam Deck is not a platform. Just make a game and try to make it compatible with handheld PCs. That's what I'm saying. It's not. It's an extension of Valve's market. But that gives you the idea that they're more interested. It's more about Valve and the operating system that they're using rather than Windows. Valve is the reason why PC is the way that it is, and they've helped out significantly. So that's my take on that. This guy says even Dev is holding Xbox. The Switch 2 is attracting as much attention as the PlayStation 5, even though it was released 8 months ago. We can expect some very, very, very big third-party games on the Switch 2. Yeah, that's going to happen. I've been trying to tell people that. They're going to have to market out big time. So I think that the things can get higher over time. So as a PC and Nintendo owner, this seems about right. Well, that's kind of the meta. If you can get, PlayStation games on Steam, though I think having all three is really good, and I always will, because I don't need to wait, and the diminishing returns are so high now. So I want you guys to let me know what you think about this survey, what you think about the numbers. Leave a comment down below. Later, y'all. Peace out. Keep gaming no matter what platform you're on.